Hey everybody, it's Party Elite back with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today we're going to see Riggsen take on Montcaz, playing as the Empire and Tomb Kings respectively in a down-to-the-death battle at Languille. We begin of course with talk of composition and deployment, and both sides have done some relatively regular deployments. I think nothing too special going on over here. The Empire is being led by Boris Todbringer up in the air up front already, and back over here he's brought with him a light wizard with Faz protection and the net of a Mintok hidden in the trees to make sure the enemy can't spot that nice and early. Up front you can see we've got the Flagellants on either flank alongside Sigmar's Sons in the middle here, providing some unbreakable units up front, checkerboarded with some halberdiers, making sure that any large armored units will take a little bit of damage if they try to push through. Back over here, another unit of halberdiers providing that same service to all of these crossbowmen as well as these handgunners and the silver bullets back over here with their extra magical damage output. On top of that, we do have the great cannon over here as well as the hammer of the witches, again adding some of that magical damage output to the artillery line over here, already firing away some of these units. And off to the side over here you can see we do have a pair of Empire Knights hiding in the trees, perhaps looking for an opportunity to come in with some rear charges whenever possible, or maybe chase after any enemy ranged units, because the Tomb Kings tend to bring a little bit of range. Now on the other side of the field, as you can see, we've got Cetra the Imperishable in charge atop a War Sphinx, and he's brought with him a Necrotect, hoping to keep some of those constructs alive and getting work done for longer. Up front you can see we have the Chosen of the Gods Ushapti with Greatbow Regiment of Renown already creeping forward, and on either flank we do have the Skeleton Horseman Archers cautiously creeping forward as well, hoping to get some early damage in to the enemy as the front line of skeleton warriors pushes up slowly but surely, followed by a couple of skeleton archers right behind them, and then a pair of tomb guard on either flank. We have the backline of skeleton spearmen as well, providing some anti-large capabilities against the Empire, alongside the Necropolis Knights with halberds over here, giving that anti-large armor piercing and poison damage output, hoping to do a lot of work. But you can see they're already taking some damage themselves with the great cannon firing away. Off to the side over here, the last unit of the Tomb Kings, the Carrion, up in the air, hoping to close the gaps to some ranged units, maybe shut down some of that artillery on the other side of the field and prevent some of that damage from coming through early on. With all that said and done, let's go ahead and see how this all breaks down. Boris Todbringer getting adventurous right at the start over here, I think pushing forward just to see what might be hiding in the trees, but it's quite clear the Tomb Kings are playing aggressively, so Boris does not have to scout so much as maybe get a little aggressive, and I think the order was given right there to chase after some of these Skeleton Horseman Archers to shut them down, as over here you can see the Chosen of the Gods taking a little bit of damage already, being knocked back a little bit by the Great Cannon fire back over here. Meanwhile, Boris Todbringer eating a little bit of fire over here, not really worried about that. Of course, he can replenish his hit points. He's going to dive on into the Skeleton Horseman Archers on that left side, as on this right side you can see this very wide approach from the Skeleton Horseman Archers as well as the Carrion, again hoping to shut down some of these ranged units and maybe even shut down the artillery itself, as over here these Skeleton Horseman Archers not having a good time. You can see meanwhile we do have the silver bullets as well as these handgunners moving forward ever so slightly, I think to fire away at the Chosen of the Gods, preparing as well for Cetra the Imperishable's inevitable approach, as the Carrion over here, as you can see, about to dive in I think on the Hammer of the Witches that are also taking fire from the Ushapti with Greatbow Regiment for Renown back there. In comes the charge, but they're going to get focused down pretty quickly. I think these crossbows are turning around, the halberdiers over here moving in, they're there just for that purpose, and the silver bullets as well turning around, firing away at the Carrion, trying to eliminate that unit as quickly as possible. Back over here, you can see the Necropolis Knights were moved in to try and force Boris Todbringer up into the air. That's exactly what happened, but he's able to dive in and out of the Skeleton Horseman Archers over there, as long as he can keep a distance from the Necropolis Knights. But you can see up front over here, we do have Cetra the Imperishable getting his first dive of the day in, pushing right through Sigmar's Sons, throwing them back, causing a fair bit of damage over there. Just about maybe a fifth or so of their health has been dropped, but Cetra can cause a lot of work in a situation like this. Of course, there are handgunners all around that will provide some armor piercing damage, so Cetra does need to be careful of that, and as I mentioned earlier, there is a light wizard out on the field as well. You can see the Carrion over here have been very quickly taken care of, but presenting massive clumps for the Ushapti with Greatbow back there, who are firing away rather happily. And over here as well you can see Boris Todbringer is caught a little out of position, as all of these Necropolis Knights, assisted by Jeff's incantation of Cursed Blades, gets kind of shut down over there. He might take a little bit of damage. His morale is dropping slowly but surely, so he might want to get out of there as soon as possible. You can see Cetra over here being a little wise, pulling back into safety, maybe chasing after Boris as well. Boris pops Foe Seeker to try and get away, but those gunshots doing a fair bit of damage, already bringing Cetra's health down again by about maybe a fifth or so. Not too much, but enough to cause some concern. And Boris, as you can see, tries to take to the air, but gets shut down by Cetra, and again surrounded by those Necropolis Knights as well. As the front lines are about to close gaps, you can see the Skeleton Warriors over here being focused down, being shot down completely, as the Empire Knights over here pushing in to get some charges in and shut them down once and for all. Beautiful charges over there, causing a tremendous amount of damage. Boris does manage to get to the air nice and safe over there as the Halberdiers over here get some work done against the Skeleton Horseman Archers, and these Empire Knights charge in to these Skeleton Warriors as well, just slowing them down. But in comes, of course, the Realm of Souls, trying to replenish some of the health over here. As you can see, these Skeleton Warriors moving in towards the Flagellants. The Flagellants are unbreakable, but all that ranged fire coming in is doing a lot of work. Down to 50% health there before the front lines even meet on that right flank over there. And in comes Boris, taking this opportunity to dive in on Cetra. Cetra's got Jeff's incantation of Cursed Blades atop, but he also now has the Net of a Mintok atop him, and that is going to cause a lot of trouble. So not only do we have Boris Todbringer diving in to Cetra the Imperishable, but we also have that Net of a Mintok, and we have the Silver Bullets back over here alongside all of these crossbows at the back over here, and we've got these handgunners over here as well, firing away at a very still target. Cetra the Imperishable has maybe made a huge mistake. You can see the damage over there is being done very swiftly. Health and morale down to about 50%. But on the right flank over here, you can see these Flagellants about to give up. Well, not give up on the fight, but about to die on the fight over here. While on the left over here, these Flagellants are doing a fair bit of work against these Skeleton Warriors. We've got Sigmar's Sons pushing forth these Halberdiers, tied down by these Skeleton Spearmen over here. And the Light Wizard has maybe pushed up a little too far. Needs to be a little careful over there lest he gets taken care of. But you can see Cetra the Imperishable down to about maybe 10% health. In comes a rear charge from the Necropolis Knights with halberds, causing some trouble for these Empire Knights, but the Empire Knights over here follow through with a rear charge of their own. Cetra is, unfortunately for the Empire, just barely able to get out of there, and now Boris is in a touch of trouble. He pops Foe Seeker to try and get away from these Necropolis Knights with halberds, and the Necropolis Knights are being assisted by the Necrotect. In comes a Restore to restore their health, and in comes another use of the, well, not a use, but another bit of value from the Realm of Souls. In fact, so much value that we actually get the Ashapti being raised over here as well, able to hold down the Empire Knights, able to cause some damage to Sigmar's Sons over here as well, who are getting help from Fa's protection. But Boris up over here starts to give chase, or continues to give chase to Cetra the Imperishable, trying to get that rear charge. You can see Cetra is in a very troublesome spot over here, very low on health, takes another big hit there, very low on morale, trying to get a charge in, maybe get some work done, but playing defense with Cetra over here, which is a waste of a very valuable unit. And you can see in come those Necropolis Knights with halberds, again trying to charge in on Boris, but very solid use of the Net of a Mintok over there, keeping Boris safe. Boris is able to pull back and take to the air if he wants to, decides to charge in on these Skeleton Archers, shut them down. They have been causing a fair bit of damage. The Flagellants on the right over here, you can see basically eliminated already, while back over here we did get a great rear charge from these Skeleton Horseman Archers into some of these handgunners and crossbowmen, trying to make sure that those range units get shut down. While over here as well, you can see these Skeleton Horseman Archers moving in to fire away a little bit, get some damage done, and shut down some of these ranged support units that the Empire has brought to the field. Up over here, meanwhile, you can see we have the Empire Knights and Boris Todbringer chasing after Cetra the Imperishable over there, getting a nice charge in there. The Necropolis Knights with halberds responding as quickly as possible, moving in to shut down all that support. Cetra very low on health, crumbling as well, and down goes Cetra the Imperishable. The Necropolis Knights arrive just a little too late. Boris Todbringer is able to pull back into safety and take to the air, but those Empire Knights have, well, they're not going to see any more days in their lives, unfortunately. The Tomb Guard over here, meanwhile, are sort of sitting there looking pretty, not doing anything. They're getting shot up by these crossbows over here, just taking the damage. Now, thankfully, they do have silver shields, but that's not going to be enough if they just stand there eating those shots. Up over here, meanwhile, you can see Boris is up in the air, looking for an opportunity to dive in somewhere else, as some of these shots continue to come through to these Tomb Guard. And back over here as well, you can see the silver bullets as well as these crossbows over here, trying to fire away, get some work done into whatever unit will take the damage. These Skeleton Archers over here moving forward to provide some supporting fire as well, maybe win this engagement against the Halberdiers, but those guys did disintegrate the Skeleton Warriors. And finally, the Tomb Guard have realized that they've just been standing there. They've realized that they actually exist and they can push through, but that might be too little too late, as all of these shots come through from these crossbows as well as the silver bullets back there. You can see the crossbows over here turn around to fire at the Skeleton Archers, while over here Boris Todbringer dives in on these Skeleton Archers, as the Light Wizard might want to pull away a little bit, as we do have some pretty dangerous units closing the gaps over there. Over here you can see, meanwhile, the Tomb Guard are chasing after these Halberdiers over here, as another unit of Tomb Guards is trying to close the gap to these crossbows, but in comes the interception from the halberds, very nicely done. And you can see these Tomb Guard have done very little. They might actually get shot up and completely destroyed, though those Skeleton Archers back there have done a lot of work in eliminating the silver bullets back over here. Boris Todbringer once again trying to get away. The Necropolis Knights get intercepted, I suppose, by the Light Wizard, and Boris, as a result of that, considers diving into the Tomb Guard back there, decides not to, takes back into the air, pulls back into the Necropolis Knights over here instead, takes a bit of a risky charge over there, but trying to free up that light wizard so he can live to die another day. Back over here, meanwhile, you can see some of these skeleton archers getting a fair bit of work done to these halberdiers who've been engaged with these skeleton spearmen since the beginning, with the skeleton spearmen finally crumbling now, and they might give up. While over here, you can see Boris uses Fa's protection, or rather, gets Fa's protection to top him, so he can dive on safely into this massive clump of flagellants and Empire Knights and maybe cause some damage to these Necropolis Knights. Unfortunately, these Empire Knights do get scared off. They pull back into safety. They are routing, and you'll notice through all of this chaos and madness, as these cannons all finally fall and die, off in the distance we have these skeleton spearmen just not doing anything. You want to talk about sitting still and looking pretty? These skeleton spearmen are the champ of that. They need to come in and they need to get some work done. Over here, Boris again needing to pull back into safety, but these Necropolis Knights with halberds have decided to push down this way and maybe chase after some of these weakened units, but unfortunately they are going to get pinged on their approach, and very clever use of these crossbows over here, trying to intercept and slow these Necropolis Knights just ever so slightly. A couple more volleys might have been made available because of that slow interception, but you can see, there you go, a little bit more damage, but in come these Necropolis Knights with their halberds throwing back the silver bullets, but Boris follows through, gets a little bit of damage in there of his own, both to health and to morale. That was a nice rear charge. He has to be very careful, though. Again, these guys cause poison damage. There are anti-large and armor-piercing. In comes Foe Seeker for Boris as well, maybe thinking about getting out of there, and you can see these crossbowmen have turned around and are maybe pushing in for a rear charge there to try and get these Necropolis Knights with halberds to completely disintegrate. They are already crumbling, so very nicely played there. They did try to shut down some of these range units, get them to rout, maybe shatter, but unfortunately that opened them up for a rear charge from Boris over here, and he's done a lot of work. In come the crossbows as well, and these Tomb Guards as well, moving in now to try and intercept those crossbows, but it might be, again, too little too late as these Necropolis Knights continue to crumble over there. Off in the distance here, you can see, by the way, the Light Wizard giving up on the fight a little bit as the Tomb Guard over here are able to just surround him, chase him down, and will get him to completely rout, as over here Sigmar's sons, unbreakable as they are, going toe-to-toe with the Necrotech, but that Necrotech looks like he's going to survive and do just fine. Skeleton Spearman back there, still waiting to be brought into the action, not doing anything. Boris has managed to take to the air and stay safe from all of these Necropolis Knights. The ranged fire now coming through once again. In comes another charge from Boris into the Tomb Guard, as well as the Necropolis Knights, throwing them around a little bit. A little bit of assistance coming in with Fa's protection. The Light Wizard just barely managed to get back into the fight from a distance here, bringing in some of that magical support, and the Tomb Guard did not finish the job. Unfortunately, the Tomb Guard just did not finish the job. So Fa's protection doing a lot of work over here. You can see these Necropolis Knights looping back, trying to get a rear charge, but they are crumbling, and that might actually kill them before they're able to close the gap. There you have it. Boris wasn't even bothered by that incoming rear charge, and this Necrotech, having taken care of Sigmar's sons, now pushing in for a nice rear charge, perhaps into the crossbowmen, getting them to give up once and for all. And you can see over here as well, these Tomb Guard moving in to try and get a charge from this side as well. A double flanking maneuver can do a lot of damage, but you can see Boris very nicely there intercepts the Necrotech, throws him back, prevents that rear charge. Now these halberdiers and the crossbowmen just have to stand against the Tomb Guard, but off in the distance you can see we do have these crossbowmen firing away at the Tomb Guard as well, causing a fair bit of morale damage. And off in the distance, finally, the Skeleton Spearmen have been noticed, and they're finally being brought in. But again, the motto of the day is too little too late, potentially. Who knows? We have Boris Todbringer pretty badly hurt, actually, up in the air once again, diving right back into this Necrotech, getting a fair bit of damage there, both to health and to morale, maybe getting that Necrotech to crumble. There it is. So the Necrotech might finally fall. The crossbow fire is coming through, hoping to get rid of these Tomb Guards, and these Tomb Guards as well. These Tomb Guards are crumbling. They've turned around. They've decided to chase after some of these halberdiers. Maybe a nice charge over here will actually get these halberdiers to give up on the fight. Army losses might take over, and the Tomb Kings might win. The Tomb Guard do manage to close the gap, but again, that crumbling is happening very quickly, and Boris decides to turn around and take matters into his own hands, gets a nice charge back there, and the Tomb Guards have been completely devastated. These Tomb Guards over here still standing and fighting, but they are crumbling as well. We've got these crossbowmen rallying, these crossbows as well able to fire away, but the halberdiers seem to be doing the job just fine over here. Boris decides to dive on in just to accelerate that crumbling into disintegrating. Down go those Tomb Guard. But these Skeleton Spearmen still willing to fight somehow. And it's not a bad situation, actually. If they box up, if they're able to hold off some charges, you can see that all of these units are pretty badly hurt, both in terms of health and morale. So this one lonely unit of Skeleton Spearmen might actually do enough against the, well, what's left of the Empire's army. Boris Todbringer very cleverly over here, coming to the side, getting ready for a side or rear charge if possible, and the Skeleton Spearmen very cleverly also have boxed up. Not only does that mean that they're going to be able to absorb charges more easily, unless something like this happens, where Boris Todbringer comes in from the side, gets so much damage in, pops Foe Seeker, and then decides to turn around and leave at the same time as these crossbows firing away. The amount of damage that did to morale is absolutely insane. These guys are more or less ready to start crumbling already, and Boris takes to the air, loops around one more time, and unfortunately for these Skeleton Spearmen, in he comes, and not only does he just dive into them, but he charges right through them, flinging them about, getting them to crumble. In come these halberdiers as well, closing the gaps. These crossbows have run out of ammunition, but that might not matter right now. They can charge right into melee as well, but you can see these Skeleton Spearmen over here, again, crumbling away. They've got a fair bit of health left, but it's not going to take too much for that crumbling to turn into disintegration. Boris Todbringer, as you can see, turns around, gets ready for another charge over here, does so with grace and finesse, and there we go. The crumbling is now disintegration, and just like that, the Empire have won the day. A beautiful battle, an intense battle that lasted right to the death for a Pyrrhic victory. Montcaz took an early risk that ended up costing him this battle. A perfectly placed net of a Mintok from Riggsen, followed by volley after volley of ranged fire of all kinds, meant that Settra had taken a lot of damage within the first quarter of the battle, as a result of which one of the Tomb King's most powerful units had to keep its distance. Unfortunately, Settra proved to be perishable after all. He fell quickly after, and though the Necropolis Knights with halberds did well to stay on top of things alongside the Necrotech that was keeping them alive, they ultimately fell as well. Great use of ranged capabilities from the Tomb Kings helped them along the way, and despite the loss of their general early on, one has to wonder if the wayward unit of skeleton spears was all that was needed to tip the battle against the Empire. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content, and keep sending in those battle replays at the Discord link in the description down below. I'd like to thank all of my patrons and channel members for supporting the channel on a monthly basis, and I'd like to thank all of you for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.